All right, today we're talking about one of the weirdest insects on the entire planet. I'm talking about a biological marvel, a fly that gives live birth and, get this, lactates. But here's the twist. It's also the one and only carrier of a truly devastating disease. So let's dive right into the very strange world of the tsetse fly.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the biology, because honestly, this is where the story gets really wild. The tsetse fly, it's not just some other pest. It's a total evolutionary outlier. It pretty much breaks all the rules we thought we knew about what an insect is supposed to be.
No, you heard that right. An insect that gives live birth and lactates. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from all this, make it that. We are talking about an insect that has somehow evolved a reproductive strategy that is just remarkably similar to mammals. And yeah, it is every bit as strange as it sounds.
And what's really fascinating is how all these weird traits are connected. So the fly gives birth to just one single fully developed larva at a time. It nourishes that larva inside its own uterus with a special kind of milk. It's so unique. This huge investment in each baby, well, it allows the tsetse fly to live a lot longer than, say, a mosquito. But to fuel that really demanding lifestyle, both the males and the females need a constant diet of blood. Nothing else will do.
And this really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Think about a mosquito. It's playing a numbers game, right? It lays hundreds of eggs and just hopes a few of them make it. But the tsetse fly? Totally different playbook. It invests all of its energy into one single offspring at a time. It's a real quality over quantity strategy, and that is just almost unheard of in the entire insect world.
But of course, there's a dark side to all this fascinating biology. That exclusive blood-only diet, it makes the tsetse fly the perfect vehicle, the perfect vector for a parasite that has plagued sub-Saharan Africa for centuries.
That disease is human African trypanosomiasis, but you've probably heard it called sleeping sickness. It's caused by this tiny microscopic parasite, a trypanosome. And here's the crucial part. Without the tsetse fly to carry it from person to person or from an animal to a person, the disease just stops. It has no other way to spread.
And the scale of the risk here is just staggering. 70 million. Now, while the number of actual cases has been dropping, which is great news, an estimated 70 million people still live in areas where they could get bitten by an infected fly. That's a massive public health challenge.
And it's important to know, this disease isn't just one thing. There are basically two versions of it. The first one, the Gambesian form, that's the vast majority of cases, like 98%. It's a chronic, slow-moving illness that's mostly passed between people. But then there's the Rhodesian form. It's much rarer, but it's also way more aggressive and progresses a lot faster. And the really tricky part, its main reservoir is in animals, which, as you can imagine, makes it a whole lot harder to control.
So, to fight a fly this unique and the complicated disease it carries, scientists knew the old playbook just wasn't going to cut it. They had to go deeper, way deeper, right down to the fly's genetic code itself to try and find its Achilles heel.
And that led to this huge global effort, the International Glossina Genome Initiative. The best way to think about it is like the Human Genome Project, but for this one bizarre blood-sucking fly. The goal was to map out its entire DNA sequence, to finally figure out what really makes it tick.
And what they found was just fascinating. The tsetse genome is huge. We're talking more than twice the size of the common fruit fly, which scientists know inside and out. A lot of that extra size comes from these big empty spaces between the genes, which kind of hints at a really different and complex evolutionary journey.
And deep inside that complex code, they found it. The smoking gun. The answer to its totally baffling reproductive strategy. It was a discovery that just sent shockwaves through the world of entomology. They found an entire family of 12 distinct genes, and these genes only switch on in the female's milk gland when she's pregnant. These genes are, literally, the blueprint for insect lactation.
Now just think about that number for a second. 48%. That means when the mother fly is lactating, nearly half of all her genetic activity, her body's entire focus, is on producing milk from just those 12 genes. It just goes to show how absolutely essential this process is for the fly's survival. It's a complete all-in genetic commitment.
But the genome revealed other secrets too. A whole bunch of clues. For one, it has fewer immune genes than you'd expect, maybe to keep from accidentally attacking the friendly bacteria it needs in its gut to survive. It's got very specific genes for seeing certain colors, and we're definitely going to come back to that. And get this,
it is completely missing the genes for tasting sugar, which just confirms it. It's a true vampire, living on nothing but blood.
Okay, so this is the crucial takeaway. Once you have the genetic blueprint, the instruction manual, you can start to turn the fly's own unique biology against it. Every single one of these peculiar traits suddenly becomes a potential weakness, a target. So now let's see how all this genetic knowledge is being used in the real world.
Right now, scientists are focused on two main attack plans, both of which came directly from that genetic data. First, exploiting its eyesight, and second, hijacking the whole internal ecosystem of bacteria that it literally cannot live without.
Okay, so for years, people on the ground knew that tsetse flies were weirdly attracted to the color blue. They just had no idea why. Well, the Genome Project found the answer, a gene called Rh5-opsin. This gene gives the fly a specific light receptor just for the color blue. It basically hardwires that attraction right into its brain.
And this is just a perfect example of how that deep, fundamental science leads to really practical solutions. Knowing about that blue receptor led directly to these things called tiny targets. They're exactly what they sound like, small, cheap pieces of blue and black cloth that are treated with insecticide. The flies see the blue, they're drawn right to it, they land, and they die. It's so simple, but it's an incredibly effective way to control the fly population.
All right, the second weakness is, I think, even more clever. The genome confirms something really important. A diet of only blood is missing certain key B vitamins. So, how does the fly get them? Well, it has a little helper, a symbiotic bacterium living inside it called, and this is a great name, Wigglesworthia. Without its little buddy Wigglesworthia, the fly is sterile. It can't reproduce.
And that absolute dependency, well, it opens the door to a strategy that is honestly brilliant, almost science fiction. The idea is to use a biological Trojan horse, to turn the fly's essential partner against the parasite it carries. This whole cutting-edge approach is called paratransgenesis. So here's the plan. You genetically engineer Wigglesworthia so that it starts producing proteins that kill the sleeping sickness parasite. Then you introduce these new and improved bacteria back into the tsetse fly population. The fly itself then becomes a living factory for a parasite-killing drug, essentially self-destructing the disease from the inside out. Just amazing.
So when you combine these new, super smart, genetically informed tools with the more traditional methods, screening and treatment for people, we are now finally in what looks like the end game of a century-long battle against sleeping sickness.
And look, this isn't just some neat scientific curiosity. This is a huge global health priority. The World Health Organization has officially targeted sleeping sickness for elimination as a public health problem. And that goal, which seemed impossible for so long, is now finally within reach. All because we have this incredibly deep understanding of the fly's biology.
And you can see the progress right here. I mean, it's just incredible. Look at this. We went from around 26,000 reported cases back in 2000 down to less than 8,000 just 12 years later. The trend line is pointing exactly where we want it to go. That 2030 target for elimination, it's looking more and more achievable every year.
So it all comes down to this, doesn't it? With its genetic code totally cracked, can we finally write the last chapter for sleeping sickness? By getting to know the tsetse fly's deepest secrets, everything from its bizarre mammal-like reproduction to the specific genes that tell it what to see, we found its weak spots. Now, the fight isn't over yet, not by a long shot, but for the very first time, we actually have the tools to imagine what the end of this story looks like.